We started today learning about the importance of bringing an integrated systems approach to creating supporting developmental environments, and how important it is also to broaden the list of policy domains which affect early childhood and long life health. And we also heard throughout the day how different actors and alliances are important to support early childhood and our work. Still, no matter how extensively scientists study early childhood and how vigorously NGOs advocate for quality early childhood services and the promotion of children's rights, these efforts cannot be effective and cannot become reality necessarily without effectively implemented public policies. To develop and implement effective and applicable public policies, it is essential that all representatives to come together, from public authorities to specialists in different fields, to the same table and discuss all the issues. We are so very glad that we have among participants so many delegations with ministry representatives today with us in the room from 13 countries across Europe and Central Asia. To moderate the panel, I am so pleased to introduce someone whose leadership and vision have been instrumental in shaping our programs and ensuring we at ESA stay focused on our mission. Mihaela Ionescu, ESA's Program Director. Her deep commitment to early childhood development and her strategic leadership have been vital in expanding ESA's programmatic reach and impact. Please join me in welcoming Mihaela, who will introduce the panelists and facilitate the panel.
1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. And I'm welcoming all the panelists for the last bit of the day, which I hope that you will also enjoy, as it will be a discussion. So I'm inviting Mrs. Natalia Miteva. You already have seen her this morning running through the from one conference to another. Thank you for coming. Mrs. Milica Markovic, please feel free to take a seat. And Mr. Milan Pasic. And I got emotional by just having that introduction. Thank you, Carmen. The microphone, yes. We have heard the entire day from morning until this last plenary session about the importance of cross-sectoral coordination. And lastly, we just heard from Carmen in her introduction. We may talk a lot about it, beautiful campaigns and advocates around the issue, but it does matter if we have an enabling environment where such issues are addressed cross-sectorally. And the policy issue is one of the crucial ones. We're very pleased to organize this panel discussion together with our partners at the UNICEF regional office in Geneva. And we're very much welcoming our colleagues from 3 countries in Europe, which we hope with the new European Commission will still keep children at the heart of policies. We've been engaged in a European campaign, First Years, First Priority, for almost 4 years now, together with our colleagues at Eurochild. And we just found out in the country profiles we've developed, which actually intentionally, we put one of the dimensions, are there cross-sectoral mechanisms or policies, bodies, strategies in place in 10 countries, and I'm very sorry to say that there were very few of having such, either at the local level or the national level. Well, this is, I would say, work in progress. So we have advocated for this type of comprehensive understanding of the early childhood system at the local level, at the national level. We have tried to find data that feeds into the comprehensive thinking of the local or national system. And policies have to correlate this data and prioritize in which way we can address issues complex, such as child poverty. And the child guarantee is a very good example of a cross-national policy promoted at the European level and then trickle down with national plans in the countries. So there are there is a lot of indication that we are moving more and more towards developing such policies. Designing them is good, developing them is good also, but then implementing them might become also a challenge. On the other hand, I think it's very important that we don't talk only about the challenges, but we also look around and see where we can find examples of progress that has been made in developing and implementing such policies that look at cross-sectorally at how they are impacting the child development, the so-called developmental environments that Jim was talking this morning. So the panel today is bringing together with us Mrs. Natalia Miteva, Deputy Minister of Education in Bulgaria. Welcome. Mrs. Milica Markovic, Ministry of Health from Montenegro, and Mr. Milan Pasic, Assistant Minister at the Ministry of Education in Serbia. And last but not least, our close partner from UNICEF Regional Office, Policy Advisor, Evelina Borisova. The panel focuses on how we can find pathways for effective cross-sectoral coordination in policy development and implementation. And we are going to have a few questions that would actually look at how the countries that are invited in the panel can provide us an insight on how they have grappled with the ambition to create such kind of policy, cross-sectoral policy documents or mechanisms or ways of implementing. And I'm very glad that we have two ministries that are coming from different sectors and bringing their experience of working with the other ministries in their own country. So I will start with the first question, which will look into countries' efforts to have policy coordination or umbrella ECD policies at the country level. And I will just ask, for example, in Montenegro, can you just describe, Mrs. Markovic, what policy coordination mechanism or policy you can provide us as an example of how Montenegro has addressed the issue of early childhood development coming from the Ministry of Health?
Thank you, Michaela. I'll try. Hello, everyone. I'm from Montenegro, as Michaela said. And first of all, I would like to take a few sentences and say thank you, UNICEF, because UNICEF is not only our strategic partner, UNICEF is our friend in Montenegro, because we developed and adopted strategy of the early child development by assistant of UNICEF, and your consultant from Bulgaria, Ivana Shalabatova. So thank you, Ivana, also. And we adopted that strategy last year, in October, 27th of October, and now is 1 year, it will be for 3 days. So we are having 600,000 people in Montenegro, and government provided us 1.2 million euros for development and for implementing that strategy. For example, this year, only for this year. So now next step, for example, is 7 till 8 November, we will providing a new action plan, and we are doing quite well. For example, we provided 100,000 euros for education of whole 3 system, because working group are consisted by 3 ministries: Ministry of Education, Ministry of Work Welfare, and Ministry of Health. Before development and adopting strategy, we talk about it 3 years before even started to provide strategy, who will be in charge. And after this conversation with highly people who are dedicated strongly for on operational level, we managed to do it on Ministry of Health. So Ministry of Health is now developing and adopting action plan. We are doing well. We are mostly in the green because we are checking our actions by action plan. People who are in working group are strongly dedicated for all 3 ministries, and we just expanded the working group because everybody knows about our strategy and wants to be part of it. We strongly dedicated ourselves to prevention, to early intervention, and it's very important that we are changing the system in Montenegro. We are encouraging the home visiting sisters, nurses who are going to home visiting, and we are having I think, big challenges, and we are thrilled to say to you our good example. I would say good example. So we are educating, we are having trainings, we are just people who are in working group for all strategy. Strategy is supervising strategy also. So it's very important to have same people. I don't know if you know, but political situation is, I would say, not so stable. But our ministry is, for lucky, is a gynecologist, and he is, I think, strongly for this strategy. So we are having, for all levels, we are having support. Thanks for that.
Thank you also, because I think we have had, I think, throughout the day, a lot of discussion of how cross-sectoral, either coordination at the local level, implementation, working together. We talked a lot about this, but we have not reached the national level. And I think this is the right moment to see that it can be done.
Yes.
It is possible. It takes time. I heard 3 years
Yes.
until you really get to this point. But it's more important that you feel very confident in the way that you have talked about it and in the way that it's starting getting implemented. I will go now to Mr. Milan Pasic and ask from Serbia, if you can bring, what is the situation there? So what kind of policy coordination example you can provide also from Serbia?
Thank you, Michaela.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to greet you all of the Ministry of Education of Government of Republic Serbia and our ministry, Slavica Đukić-Dejanović, Professor Doctor. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks for the opportunity to speak at the policy panels. It's both my privilege and pleasure to be in such distinguished company. During the conference, I had the opportunity to meet exceptional people and experts. For me, it's first time in ISA, and congratulations to 25th anniversary.
First of the many.
Thank you all of us to stay until the end of the day. Thank you. As of 2018, Serbia had 2 calls for action. We have support from UNICEF, is launching this one of the call, and elaborating shared goals of health, education, and social protection. Sectors related to provision to wide social support to children in early years and their families. These calls intended to raise awareness on the importance of early years and the coordination approach of different sectors in designing of measures supporting holistic development and well-being of children. All goals or areas of this call of action are grounded in relevant legal and strategic frameworks in 3 sectors: education, health, social protection. We hear everybody's the same situation, same politics. But also in other relevant policies, like related to Roma inclusion, persons with disabilities, anti-discrimination, violence prevention, populations, and demography. First of call of action was 6 priorities, and this is one is parenting support, second is valuable preschool education every child, third is safe childhood, improvement of children's health, intervention in early childhood, and political institutional consolidation. All mentioned documents are aligned with respective international legal frameworks, in particular with Convention on Rights of the Child and SDG Agenda 2030. At the highest policy level, important mechanism of intersectional coordination is action plan of implementation of the government program, an operational document created towards more effectiveness achieving of the government's priorities presented in government program. This is adopted in National Ensemble of the Republic of Serbia in parallel with the election of new government this year in May. Also, interdepartmental cooperation is necessary in order to achieve this plan, and a special coordination mechanism was established through the work implementation groups for each priority area of action plan. And the second one was the activities in the action plan was the from period 26 implementation group in frameworks of priority goal 2. The implementation of the education system forces indicators of the improvement, access, quality, and equity in early childhood. How it functions in practice. 2019, we have a working group for early childhood education and care, founded by act of the government. And so, since 2019 and 2023, we have involved high representatives for various sectors: education, health, social protection, finance, local self-government, family care, and demography, also union of teachers. And the mandate of this work group is improvement of the ECD system and addressing issues in field through intersectional cooperation. Since 2020, we have Ministry of Family Care and Demography, which charges certain topics, including support for families and children, improvement of measures, strengthen the family as basic unity of sector parenting support. And colleagues today with us, we have 4 ministry of this panel from our government. And what the Brett says, please make pressure for policymaker, be proactive, and you have success. Thank you.
Thank you also. Thank you also, Mr. Pasic. Well, I've heard both of you talking already about specific types of mechanisms of coordination, and you were mentioning working groups.
Yes.
So where do you think that they function the best? Is it in terms of establishing priorities? Is it in terms of funding? Is it in terms of how the implementation actually should be trickled down in terms of how services should work together around specific types of actions in the strategies? What was the role, or do you think this is the way to move ahead? And who were the people that were in these working groups?
I think it was all 3 that you said. Because if you have same people who are written strategy, right strategy,
yes, they have
and development strategy, and implementing strategy, and supervising strategy, that is the key, because you have people who are not changing politically. With all due respect for politicians, people who are strongly educated and dedicated are on the field. People who are in the working group, who will not be changed, people who will be right, who will be supervising strategy and implementing that strategy. Because that is like a circle. And circle never ends because people are gathering together. Before I mentioned that before we developed a strategy, we were friends with UNICEF. UNICEF started that idea, and during that different types of ministry, UNICEF get together people from the field. And we are connected, and we are strongly banded and dedicated. I think that is the key, because the same working group with the essential people will be providing new action plan, and it will be better than this year plan, because we already know the path. And now it's easy. I think on February last year, when we write strategy, I think, the most difficult step for us, but step by step, as Isa said, it's very
That's
easy.
how we do it.
Yes, it's very easy for now to say that we are managing and that we are going path of success. But thanks to UNICEF, again, I think Isa is also our very big support by UNICEF also, but UNICEF is very strongly our partner and our friend. I would say more friend and then partner, because we are such connected.
Few sentences.
Please.
I agree with
Yes.
Milica. Excellent. You must be on field. You must talk with the people. We have opportunity in this work group with practitioners, different ministry. We, in past month, we have 6 regular meetings with our colleagues, principals, employers in preschool. Talk with them, not only with union of teachers, we talk with the other employees, listen to them, motivate to be proactive, listen to them, change laws, change bylaws, everything. Must be on the field, must talk with the people. This is message for all. You don't just stay in office and send emails, change the laws, bylaws. No, you must go to the field and see what's happening in real.
I would also want to say something. In every training, in every action, in our action plan, I was there as a representative of minister, because they could ask me about their problems, they could talk with me, I would answer it, because I'm also one of them, because I was in the health system 15 years before that. I am a nurse, so I was like on the field and I understand them, and now I'm in the other side, but reasonable. It's very, very important to be with all step by step with the people who make changes.
Thank you so much. I'm turning now to Mrs. Natalia Miteva, because I think that also Bulgaria has made important steps ahead over this, especially in the past years, quite close to getting to an ECD strategy at a certain point, but still, I think that there's been quite important narrative built around ECD. From your experience now, which of the mechanisms have really created buy-in and has led to the possibility of either joint funding or joint action, joint prioritization? I don't know to what extent such working groups or other types of inter-ministerial agreements, or so. From your perspective, which of the mechanisms might be more effective to advance the ECD agenda at the country level?
Thank you, Michaela. Well, to create a common buy-in for a potential ECD strategy, let's just not speak about it as a document, but as a concept. Our experience shows that there are 3 elements that need to be in place. Number 1 is what would be the structure that would provide interinstitutional support and expert work. And in our case, at the end of 2023, we created an inter-ministerial working group that was appointed by the Prime Minister. And it involved 3 ministries that were already mentioned, the same ones: education and science, labor and social policy, and health. And the chair of that was appointed was the Minister of Education and Science. And the 2 deputy chairs would be one from education and one from labor and social policy. So that working group was taking place for the first time at a really high level, and it basically had to carry out the agenda for what to do next, you know, and create the momentum around EC in terms of action plan. So it created an action plan for 2024, which was adopted by the Council of Ministers early in the year, but its next step is going to be a plan that will take us through 2030. within that mandate, the Ministry of Education started looking at what competences are needed for professionals working in 0 to 7. What competences are we missing in the workforce and what we need to do better. So we started talking to universities, some of them are present here, what specialties and what programs we have to train professionals specifically for 0 to 7. And it turns out we need to create that capacity. Even more so for 0 to 3. That has been perceived mostly as a healthcare domain, and we need to enhance that with a pedagogical skill set, specifically in the Bulgarian context. So when I started with 3 points to create an agenda, momentum, and a strategy around early childhood education. You need a body to carry that through. In our case, it's been an inter-ministerial working group. You need a plan or a goal, whether it's a strategy or an action plan or something to work toward. And you need resources, number 3. You need, usually it's a budget. And I want to say here something that I find interesting. In Bulgaria right now, we have a prohibition to create more strategies because we have way too many. So right now what we're starting to do is to combine strategies, to take some out that are irrelevant or overlapping, so that we can create some space for new ones that are central to the agenda, and that can really become a priority, such as, for example, early childhood education and care.
Thank you so much. I have a question for perhaps all of you, and also Evelina, if you want to intervene, please, until I will have a question for you. What made coordination work in these working groups, whatever types of infrastructure it's there for bringing ministries, policies together? What mattered the most in this, to make that coordination work?
I think people, dedicated people. In my case, I don't know if you want to add.
You said people?
Yeah. When she said about too many strategies, we also have that it's like a trend that we do have strategies, and we are having so many strategies, but you must provide that others knows you as a synonym for strategy. For example, in my office, there is 5 of us in my office, and they said to me, we missed your strategy of early child development when you don't mention it in 5 minutes. Because all the time, everybody knows that I'm working that strategy. And I'm all the time dedicated for that. And I just think that people gives the meanings of the words and the documents. So it's very important. It's okay to have so many strategy, but it's more important to have people who will give meaning of the strategy.
Yeah, we make it live.
Confidential for me.
Yeah.
For you,
Yes,
please.
confidential, because we don't have 2 sides, government and union or other side. We have a start with 2019 with preschool, 2023 we start with school, primary and secondary, the same work group. It's function. We listen each other. We've tried short, middle, and long strategies. Depends of challenges, maybe says, and find way to this. We have problem with local self-government. It's 175, and it's 175. Depends. You must say some activities, talk with them, go to. But for me, it's confidence in first time when we start. After that, everything is easy.
I think what works to make that connection between institutions and to really work toward a shared goal successfully is the ecosystems approach, to be quite honest. I think it's quite easy in countries that have strong central governments for governments to occupy that space and think that they are self-sufficient in that game. but and look for other partners only when there's a project and it requires that, or funding, or so on. And I think just really recognizing the importance of an ecosystem where academia, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, international organizations, individual experts, a lot of people can have a role and find their own mission within this whole agenda. I think that is critical. It's critical to build trust within this ecosystem, to take it slowly and not force it on anyone. But once you have it, there's no going back. It is gonna carry the agenda through.
Yes. Well, next question. Now, because we are having the privilege to hear from 3 countries, and you just brought the magic word ecosystem, what opportunities do you see for enhancing the ecosystem in your country in the way that we've just described it? So how do you see that, or at least in the next years, do you see opportunities, not just the collaboration between 2 or 3 ministries? So how this type of ecosystem that we are talking about, perhaps even enlarging the number of ministries that are participating to the thinking, planning, coordinating actions towards early childhood development, where do you see that such opportunities might exist to create that type of thinking? Please, yes.
Well,
and then I will ask.
I ran quickly to another event throughout the day, which was on media literacy. And the reason I did that is that it's such an important topic in this day and age. And I think it's becoming a basic literacy for us, specifically in this part of the world, to make sure we equip children with media literacy. And one thing I saw there was the Media Literacy Coalition was showing a mapping study of all the initiatives on the topic in Bulgaria for the past 10 years. And I thought, how brilliant. You know, it can be done in any domain and on any topic, so you know what your ecosystem looks like. You know who's doing what. You understand what funding there is available from what sources and what the gaps are, more importantly, when you talk about how you can enhance your ecosystem. What came out there, for example, is that more than 80% of the projects in that particular topic are funded by the European Union. Government funding was minimal, almost non-existent, and only 6% of all projects addressed vulnerable groups. Well, how valuable is that? So to be quite honest, in terms of early childhood education care, I really want to know that, because I'm sure there are a lot of other organizations that we don't necessarily see in our everyday work that do important work, specifically regionally on our topic. And that will also, and even between the 3 ministries, to be quite honest, I'm sure we don't know what each other is doing in full, in the full spectrum. So it's important to map that ecosystem, to maintain an active relationship, to understand where the gaps are, and to try to find ways to fill those gaps.
For me,
Yes,
most challenging is connecting. Connecting with the system and stay connected. Because it's very challenging for, I think, for every ministry, and to spare parents and the children some kind of the problems that they need to go to institution, to lose the time, because child brain is essential from 0 till 3. So for me is more challenging. Most challenging is connection.
I will turn to you now, Eva.
I have a lot of ideas.
Yes, because I'm sure that you have a lot of experience working in so many countries in the world, and then let alone what it's happening in Europe and Central Asia. So, and I know that you've been also contributing a lot to the efforts that have been put over the years, enhancing the collective thinking and coordinated thinking around early childhood development efforts in countries. So from your perspective, do you see opportunities where such kind of ecosystems can be advanced? And then how actually this, or to what extent the regional context, it's something that provides a fertile ground for advancing this type of ecosystem thinking in countries?
Okay. First of all, it's so nice to have this conversation and to be a part of this. And I was just thinking as I was sitting here, like 5 years ago, we could not have imagined, just 5 years ago, we could not have imagined that we would actually be talking about, at this level, about inter-ministerial coordination for early years. I think for the last few decades, we've made so much progress on sectoral policies and really pushing the conversations on early education and care, on how we want the health sector to deliver better, what's the role of the social welfare sector. But it's really in the last few years, at least from my perspective and regionally, I see a real momentum and opportunity to really bring the conversation together to the next level. So congratulations to you all and to all the policymakers in the room, because without your commitment and leadership and joint vision, I think we would not be here. And it's I feel like it's a pivotal moment for the whole field in terms of where we want to go with this much bigger idea. I wanted to answer in 3 parts, Mihaela, and I think I was thinking about, while we're not talking about why interministerial coordination matters, I actually think it's a part of the conversation, and you've all kind of touched on this, and I think it's really important to kind of put it in the context of how crucial, in fact, that is to bring the results for young children to the level at which we want to see them. And at UNICEF, I think the way we've kind of see the space for coordination at the policy level is with a multiplier effect. So really as an accelerator for results. While sectoral areas and policies and services really are the backbone of what we want to deliver for children, it's this interministerial discussions that can multiply the results across sectors and that can really bring the kind of next generation of results, so to say. So if we can think of this coordination mechanisms as true accelerator of what we want to achieve for children, I think we would be on the right track, and I see it very clearly. The 3 key systems that we've heard about, health, education, and social welfare, are the beginning of a discussion, and I think your question is very right, and a big lesson learned from UNICEF is that those 3 key ministries are absolutely crucial, but they're not the only ones. Ministry of Finance seems to be a very important player in this, and I would say one of the lessons learned we have is when we bring the Ministry of Finance early on into this kind of broader policy platform, we tend to have a better space for budgets and for some of these strategies to kind of move to implementation. But other ministries as well, and we're seeing that as well. Ministry of Digital Transformation in some countries, Ministry of Economy in others. So it's Ministry of Family and Women in some of the countries. So the space is there, but I would say the 3 key actors tend to be the same. So that's really crucial. What is it about, and where I see the space for further strengthening of the work is we are talking about policy alignment to a large extent. Why? Because I think without aligning the policies and the services, we are missing opportunities for efficiencies. And I think everybody cares about in the very shrinking budget space, I think efficiency is very important. But efficiency not just from budget perspective, efficiency from the perspective of how we reach families and children. Because at the end of the day, it's one child and one family reached by 3 different or 4 different ministries and services. And the coming together allows us to actually have a much better ecosystem of efficient way to interact with that family with a similar approach, with the same values and the same principles. So for me, policy alignment is also about kind of not duplicating efforts, but multiplying the efforts of each other and picking up on each other. And most importantly, around accountability mechanisms that allow for these policies to actually move forward. And I think that's the space where I think we can improve and enhance. From the regional perspective, and actually we take that as a very positive sign, half of the countries in the region that we support, so that's 12 out of 24 countries, actually have either already an early childhood development or early years strategy, action plan, call to action, or are in the process of finalizing one. 5 years ago, we were just at 3 or 4 countries. So the fact that all of this even happened in a very difficult period of time, COVID, post-COVID, to me is an indication that we're quite mature in this space. But where we see the space for further enhancement, and I think also opportunities for learning across the region, is precisely the question that you asked the group. A strategy, an action plan, or a call to action is just one part of it, right? It's not the result that we're after, it's the beginning of the process. In fact, to get to that is a process, and we can talk about what it takes to move there and why that's important. But getting to a strategy and an action plan is the beginning of the next process of what does this actually mean for implementation, for the capacity across the three systems that need to be there, the budget, the support, and the leadership across the three sectors to really bring that to life. And I think that is where I see a lot of opportunity for next set of dialogue and shared practices across countries in really looking more closely at what we are learning from the first cohort of pioneers, and they're sitting here with us, and many others in the room who've not only gone through the process of developing a strategy and action plan, but are already thinking about what the next steps are to really feed into the next cohort of countries who are in the early stages for that. And a lot of what we've talked about today in all the sessions of the conference has been sharing best practices, peer exchange, honest reflection around the challenges and what's working and what's not. And I think one of the great things about the early childhood field with so many pioneers here is that we actually are quite self-reflective and self-critical, which I think is what's needed in order to really move the field forward, because this is not an easy task. And we are one of the few sectors, if I may, as an early childhood development sector, that is truly taking to heart the multi-sectoral nature of what children and families need. And if we can model this in the early years, I think we can demonstrate a lot more in what we need to do across sectors for middle school and adolescence as well. So I would say very much on the regional level, we see a huge opportunity for further sharing of good practices, but more importantly, sharing of challenges and concerns and true opportunities to think together and brainstorm around moving from strategy and action plan to implementation of these strategies on the ground. And I can say a lot more about what I think it would take.
For those of you that are in ministries, in government, how many of our ministries have monitoring and evaluation departments? Can you raise your hand?
Nobody.
Nobody.
That's the point. We do not. We don't have the right staffing, and we don't have the right budget or a budget at all for impact evaluations. Then how do we know this is going to work? Based on our feeling. There was a person at the World Bank years ago that trained people on impact evaluation, a lot of people in this room, and he said, when it comes to policy, there is no such thing as I feel, I think, I believe it works. You gotta measure it, right? Mm-hmm. So that you know that this institutional and partnership approach works, that it is achieving the goals of providing all services into this one child and one family. Otherwise, we have ideas, we put them on paper, then we go into implementing them. We actually put a lot of effort in that whole process without having the data to inform us whether or not that is effective and results-oriented. So impact evaluations, guys, let's make an effort to work toward that end.
I think in general, monitoring and evaluation matters tremendously in finding out if you're on the right track and if it feeds. Yeah, data.
Data alone it's a game changer in terms of setting the stage right for where are we starting and where do we want to go and what are the joint results we want to achieve. So I fully agree, but let's start with the basic.
For an example, our strategy is provided by government 1.2 million, and half of that is for the digitalization of the strategy. So its amount, it says how important it is. So 500,000 is about for digitalization, and UNICEF
and connecting
also
systems.
Yes, a connecting system. Also, UNICEF support us on that field because we already have your consultant in Montenegro. We did last week, and he talked with Ministry of Health and other ministries how to digital and connected whole system. It's a great challenge for us also.
If we talk about integrated work, we definitely need also integrated data systems. I think it's very hard otherwise. Well, we're getting kind of to a close, so I will just have one question for all four of you. As we are looking ahead, and we have now in the room a lot of colleagues coming from different countries who might be in the process or might have already achieved partially some of the efforts that you have just shared with us, or planning to do so, or not necessarily thinking that this can be achieved on a short term, I would say. What are your top recommendations for strengthening the coordination across ministries to create this ecosystem that we are talking? So what would be, from your perspective, your top recommendations, if they are to commit themselves and embark on this process. Because I think that is so valuable to hear from those that have been through the process, with the goods and the bads, you know, with the blood, sweat and tears that can come on the way. But it is so important. Yes. Please, Don. Yes,
Thank
please,
you.
madam.
First, one of the conclusions of today's panel is Evelina idea. Next ICA conference, please call Ministry of Finance from each country to listen.
Can you bring them?
Yes, no problem. No problem.
Okay.
It's very good idea to...
The hardest ones to
Yes,
do.
fine. And put in the locker room and find a...
We
Little
will
joke,
create a
sorry.
cross-coordination room.
What we say about some activities, you know, some of us, and they say this is academy professor, research show that early intervention is most effective when support is provided as early as possible. It's natural environment, like home, kindergarten, with active involvement of family and peers. Interventions should be integrated into daily routines, with talking to us, with experts focusing on supporting parents and family at home. I give some key priorities from that guide of some future ideas and efforts. Mrs. Tamara Vučić, the wife of the President of Republic of Serbia, initiated the initiative to establish the Center of Early Child Development and Inclusion under the name Ornament of the World. Today we spoke one of panel. This is multifunctional facility with an area of about 20,000 meters square, located in Belgrade, will be ready in the next few months, and will provide diagnostic and therapeutic support to children and parents, as well as special training for all these involved in early child development of children. As part of center, there will be a swimming pool, training centers, psycho-hall, sensory rooms, mini zoo, and stable for horses. The institution is not only intended for children with development difficulties, but also those completely normal development, and I call everyone to visit this center in future. Also, we see further engagement of quality established coordinations mechanism government we talk with implementation government program, recognize advanced practice at the local level at their promotion to empower other local self-government to improve their practices of intersectoral cooperation, ensure functional support to children and families. Also, continuation investment in quality preschool education. We're talking about this. We prepare stability, equality, and preschool education, but no depends on us. And also ensure universal access to parenting support, ensure equal availability of services for children and families, and for in the end, together we can build a brighter future for our younger citizens and create a society where every children has the opportunity of reach the full potential. I tried to find the best way.
Okay, thank you.
I already said, and like Mr. Pasic said and Evelina, I think that after this closing, I will be advising our Deputy of Minister to involve Ministry of Finance in our working group. So it will be done. And I hope that will be...
Okay.
I would recommend it to you already have Ivanka Shalapatova. So she helped us with UNICEF to write our strategy. And she is excellent, and thanks to her, we do have that document, and we will, as you said, we will do some data, because without evaluation, we just don't. It's like I'm saying we are good, but who is measuring that? You are totally right, and thank you for that comment. And now we already have some support from UNICEF for evaluation in Montenegro. I think that we are doing evaluation of strategy only by support of UNICEF. We already did some evaluation supporting UNICEF for children's rights. That is the least evaluation in Montenegro for strategy of the children's right. And thank you. That's all from me.
Natalia?
Well, involve some crazy believers in the fact that children are the most important investment in our societies. And once we start with that vision, the momentum and trying to find ways to maintain that momentum and that energy, things will fall in place. You know, there will be a strategy, there will be a budget, and so on. Once you have the craziest, the most dedicated professionals involved in that work, I think you have the most important element. And the other thing is to celebrate successes along the way. This is a long-term journey. It's not going to end in 2 years. You know, developing comprehensive, well-functioning, well-funded, strategically aligned early childhood education and care systems is going to take a while. I mean, we all have a lot of the elements for the recipe of success, but this is not going to end in 2026 or, you know, or the year after. It's going to be a long-term process. The world is changing. We need to keep improving. We need to keep growing. So while we wait for that moment of excellence, you know, let's celebrate small victories and make sure we communicate them to the broader society so that we can all own the successes we have, so that we can gather support for doing further work.
Thank you. Evelina.
I'll be very pragmatic, although I fully agree with everything that's been said. And maybe I'll divide my recommendations to countries who are in the process of starting this process and countries who've already developed a strategy and an action plan. For countries who are in the process of starting, I would say from our experience, the starting point is formalize a process. It doesn't matter what the process is, just formalize a process that makes sense. And here I would say, you know, a lot of the questions that come to us, do we start a working group? Do we start an inter-ministerial committee? Do we work on a strategy, an action plan? Yes. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry, I'm going to be less diplomatic, but I really think it doesn't matter. I think what matters is what works in your context. What is the entry point that you have in that particular country where ministries are already coming together and you can use that as a platform to establish a dialogue and a process around early years. And if that platform exists, expand it, and then think about, does it make sense to start with an action plan? Does it make sense to go directly into a strategy? Or are you talking about an initial call to action, which is what I think Serbia also pursued as well? In all of these circumstances, what matters is actually a shared vision and establishing that vision that I think you're seeing very closely related to that, and then from there on deciding which way you want to go. And to me, a shared vision isn't just about the goals, it's about shared language. And I said that earlier today in the panel, but we come from 3 very unique sectoral pillars. We speak different dialects. If not different languages, we definitely speak different dialects about how we look at children, how we look at the workforce that is in touch with children, and what policies mean to social policy, to education, and to health. So for me, a part of this process is really coming to seeing each other's language and to being able to actually speak each other's language and have the same understanding of what we're trying to achieve. So for me, the starting point is formalize a process, establish an idea of which way you're going, and then share language and capacity together, because I think that would make one of the biggest difference. And don't worry so much about what you call it, because it'll evolve as you go forward. The second big thing for me is develop leadership, and I think you all have really clarified that, and just by being here you demonstrate that without leadership, cross-sectoral cooperation is very hard to happen. It's not incentivized by nature, so there has to be a higher level vision, power, incentive that really brings a cohesive idea forward for why we're doing this. And I think if the why is very clear and there's a leadership, and again, for me, we have seen countries where the Ministry of Health is convening the other ministries. We've seen countries where Ministry of Education is convening the ministry. We've seen countries where Ministry of Finance is actually convening, or Prime Minister. It really is country by country, and there is no one size fits all. But I would say leverage the entry point that you have and a leadership that exists with the power to bring other ministries together and expand from there. You know, what is the best makeup of that working group, and don't worry so much about, you know, how we call it in the beginning, because it will naturally evolve. And then I think for countries that, including all the pioneering countries that are here, who already have developed a structure, moved through the process, have a draft or clear strategy and way forward, we've already been discussing that the next step is really putting legs on that strategy, so to say, and thinking what are the immediate spaces that we can make a difference. And a lot of countries are coming to similar conclusion, and it's workforce. So we have workforce across health, education, and social welfare that is in touch with families. How do we come to common competencies or similar paradigm of how we work with families across the sectors? That to me is a low-hanging fruit, and it's an easy way to start by creating a common capacity across the three systems around family-centered, child development-centered approach. So that's one. The second one is service gaps. And I think a lot of the strategies often get to we want to expand early childhood education by this %. We want to integrate developmental monitoring into the health systems. We want parenting programs to wrap around. But we often miss the spaces where actually we have clear service gaps or policy gaps between ministries. Let's start with that, because that is an immediate gap for families and children that we can actually make a difference. And the second thing is parenting. I think we've talked a lot about parenting as the kind of the big important wraparound service that really needs to bring all three ministries together in terms of a vision and a way forward. And that's also a kind of a low-hanging fruit, perhaps not so easy to change parenting practices, but if all three ministries are behind it, I think you can achieve a lot relatively quickly and celebrate that success. And third, of course, is the budgeting and the financing that needs to align it, and the lower level governance. And Michaela, you brought this up earlier. We've seen successful examples. I mean, Ireland, many of you probably looked at them.
Right.
I think what they've done in a very short period of time is really bridge national level intersectoral coordination with local level governance that really brings together the full continuum. And we know that that's where we have to go. You've raised the issue as well. Coming from a national strategy to local level implementation will require a process to bring that down, and I think that's a natural next step. And but really, don't be daunted by the process, because the process is actually the outcome. This is one of the things we're learning. It's not about the strategy or the action plan or anything else. It's the process by which we reach the goals. And I fully agree with the importance of celebrating the small or big wins along the way, because there are many, and we often forget that those are the important milestones as well.
I think that everybody agrees with what you were saying, Eva, and I think it's about, we come back to the idea of a competence system, and we might say that a competence system is a system that works in a very coordinated way, and that type of coordination does not have to exist only at the ministry level, but then at all the levels within the system, and tripling down to the local and the service level. And I think that's the part that needs a different mindset, a different way of working, and understanding why we have to do it. It's not because otherwise it's like we just push people to work together, but they have to be themselves aware of why this is so important. I think the fact that we reached the point of talking about a working group and developing a strategy has already passed that step of understanding why they are doing it. Well, I can only say that we feel fortunate to have 3 examples of countries that have taken already the pioneering work ahead in bridging the sectors and finding collective action towards achieving better lives for children. The work is at the beginning, as we said. And I think that I hope in some years' time we will talk not only about the 3 ministries and not only about the 4 ministries, about many other ministries, as we have just said, early years are the most important period of life, and it's where the society actually finds its vital source for development. Well, with this, I think, positive note, we have good news that we have brought, and I hope that even though we are not in the position of being a policymaker, there are so many examples across many countries that have fed the narrative of cross-sectoral coordination, of working in an integrated manner. This sits with civil society also. So I think that that type of experience and expertise would be extremely valuable for all the working groups that might be created at country level, so that we unearth the expertise that is locked in pockets in different places, and they are actually quite ready to feed into a larger, a broader plan for building that cross-sectoral culture. Because it's not just about structure, it's also about, not only about language, but also the cross-sectoral and the coordination, cross-sectoral coordination culture. I'm thanking all of you, and I'm thanking all of you for staying with us even beyond the time that was allocated for this evening after a very long, long day with a very, very sunny day. So we're even more grateful that you stayed with us. We are going to invite Liana to close. Thank you so much.
Thank you.